What did you do when you first came up here, Oliver, all those years ago? Did you go straight into real estate, or?
I didn't. Did a number of different roles. I worked in the kitchens. I basically just found my way around town. It was a little bit harder to get work back then, especially through the winter because the season did drop off. So I worked in the Footbridge Cafe for about 12 months.
Yeah.
And then I did well, look, I always knew I wanted to help people. Real estate wasn't actually the job that I had planned when I was younger. I actually wanted to get into psychology. But I found myself, doing the course. I had a friend in real estate down in Melbourne who said, hey, look, I think you should give it a go. So I decided to do the course, knock on a few doors, ended up getting a job down at the Professionals, where I worked for about 12 months. The first 12 months was, it was interesting. It was.
Well, I had a lot to do with you during that time because you were down here knocking on the door trying to get a job here.
I was.
And that persistence and consistent approach here was something that I admired at the time, and you didn't give up in your own sort of way. You have a way about you, which I've watched in the last 4 or 5 years you've used to grow your business. But what did you learn in that first year or so? You weren't working here, you were somewhere else, you got an opportunity. What did you learn?
Resilience. I think I learnt resilience back when I was a lot younger, but it tested me. It really tested me. There was no support network down there. I was sort of just thrown into the deep end. Here was a phone and start making calls, which was interesting. I think it was good. It was good to get that experience first. But early on in that career, in the Professionals, I knew where I wanted to be. I identified the office that I wanted to work at. Also identified that I needed to do I like to call it an apprenticeship. So I've reached out and took quite a few interviews to get in the door, but you find...
How many interviews do you think we did, you and I? Now we look back. How many interviews did we do over that, what was probably a 6-month period?
It was. Well, at the time, you didn't actually have a position for me.
No, I didn't. That didn't dent your enthusiasm, though, did it?
It didn't.
No.
It probably drove me a little bit harder.
You irritated me a great deal during those 6 months.
I think it was up near about 9 or 10 interviews.
It was. I think we might have got into double figures. I tell you what convinced me, though, and this is for people out there in what doesn't matter what the profession is, when someone's that keen to join your organisation or to join your profession, that of itself is a big statement. I've always believed that you interview for character or attitude rather than skills. You can teach people things, and I think when you see the keenness, that zest, that enthusiasm in people's eyes, which you did have. Let's fast forward a little bit. Now 5 years, in the last couple of years, we've seen some marked and significant changes in both your business and in the market here. The last 18 months in particular, you've really moved forward and done very, very well.
Thank you.
What's changed in the last 18 months? You did your apprenticeship and you did it very well, but what's changed?
Are we talking market specific? Or
no, I mean you. Here, I'm interested here, and I think our audiences are, and you've moved into a different section of the market. You're doing a lot more listings. People are trusting you with their houses. So your business has grown a great deal in the last couple of years. So what's changed? What did you change?
I think appearance-wise, I've got a few more grey hairs.
There's not too many. There's not too many there.
No, look, I think it's like any industry. You need to build a foundation and build from that. I think if you build a strong foundation, you're going to have a successful business, no matter what industry you're working within. And I think I did that really well. I think I went into Sue's team initially, did 12 months under her banner, and I was just a sponge. I absorbed everything, the processes, the strategies that she implemented into her business. And I've just copied that directly into my business. So I've been very blessed to have that experience before going out by myself, which I think a lot of people don't have in this industry, which is why it's so tough. You know, those first 3 to 5 years it's 1 to 3 years. It's a really tough.
The great surprise to people when they get into real estate generally is that the business they thought they were entering, once they get in there, realise it's not the business they are entering. They're two different businesses. There's the one on the outside that looks pretty simple and straightforward. When you get inside, you realise all these other things. Exactly as you've said, you've got to build foundations. That structure is power, and you've got to put processes and stuff in your business. What's your observation in the last couple of years here through our COVID marketplace about real estate in general? What's your observation of the buyers and sellers in the last couple of years?
People need to feel supported, I think, more now than ever.
Buyers and sellers?
Buyers and sellers.
Yep.
I think especially buyers at this stage.
Yeah.
We're just coming out of what I feel is probably the strongest tailwind market we've ever seen here. I've never seen that sort of capital growth in a 12-month period. I think Australia-wide, I think we've had the most.
It is.
Which is blown everyone away. So I think nurturing the buyers and empathising with them is really important. Myself, looking to buy a property as well, I know how it feels missing out, turning up to auctions, being outbidded. So I think nurturing the buyers, but on the other hand is servicing the owners as well. And that's why I love real estate so much. When I first got in, I thought it would be maybe a 1 to 2 year job. And I'll move on and get into psychology, which was my bigger picture plan. What's kept me in real estate is I just love helping people. I really, really love helping people. I love sitting down with an owner, strategizing, putting together a plan that fits what they're wanting to achieve. And when that plan works in the end, and you just see, I guess, the joy and the excitement with an owner and both with a buyer as well. It's really fulfilling and keeps me passionate about the job, keeps the spring in my step. So
I think you'll also get ample time to practice amateur psychology, being a real estate agent, with buyers and with sellers, because I know in my more than 4 decades, I do feel that time to time that we do get an opportunity. The most interesting thing for me in the last 18 months, having been here for so long and observed our market for so long, and is to get a feel for the difference between the people who are maybe coming here now, as opposed to the people who we dealt with 4 or 5 years ago. There's an impression out there in the big world that we're full of movie stars and famous people, and they're the only people that move here, but that's not the case, is it? The people we're dealing with.
No, it's not. Look, everybody who buys a property through First National, as you know, we track where they come from, which is a wonderful thing that we do, which helps us market properties. The interesting thing is just over 50% are already living in the Northern Rivers. You have about 20% coming from Sydney and specific suburbs of Sydney. I think where those numbers are skewed a little bit is if a Sydney buyer comes up here and they rent first, try before you buy, as many of them do, they become a local stat. So, that number might be up to sort of 30, maybe 40%.
It is, and it adds up to the locals. When you add the two together, about 8 out of 10 buyers come from New South Wales somewhere. And what about overseas buyers? We still manage to get a few, and I know travel is banned and so on, but we still manage to get a few people buying here. How do they do that?
We did. We're very, very good at that, actually. Through the pandemic, when the lockdown happened, look, we just picked the phone up and we did video tours. We picked the gimbal up, we did those video tours and very detailed video inspections of properties to make those expats, where a lot of them were expats, whether they're in Singapore or wherever they might be, make them feel comfortable about buying property sight unseen.
One of the biggest sales that was made here during the pandemic was $22 million was made on a FaceTime on a phone.
It was.
But we've now seen so many examples of people buying using just technology or turning up long after sometimes, if they are able to get into the country finally, to have a look at their property that they purchased without walking through the front door. Finally, and most importantly, we're just finished the financial year this year. We've just finished a very busy June for us, probably one of the best Junes and winter months that we've ever had. What's it feel like out there in the market at the moment at the open homes and so on? What's the mood?
Look, we don't have that crystal ball. I think we all wish that we did so we could see what the future holds. I guess we are fortunate enough to have so many open homes across an agency where we're meeting a lot of buyers and we have that on-ground sort of intel. I think the overall feeling is buyers don't want to miss out, but they also don't want to overpay. And that's probably a new thing that's come into the market. Before, they just didn't want to miss out. So I feel we're probably coming out of one of the best markets we've ever seen. It still is the best time to sell a property if you're living in the Northern Rivers or most parts of Australia. I don't think we're going to see the growth that we've had. I think coming out of a tailwind market, we're probably going into a no-win market. And I think we're going to stay there for some time. I think it's still going to be a positive market to sell in. I think we're still going to have that demand coming out of the CBDs. Until there's some sort of economic change or interest rates go up, I don't think we're going to see that headwind for some time.
I agree with you. I think all the experts are the same. Fear of missing out, FOMO has been replaced, I think, with some purchasers, rightly so, with fear of paying too much, so that they're cautious. We're certainly sometimes having to adjust the price of some of the properties at the moment, but generally prices are as good as we've ever seen them, and I feel like you that they're likely to stay there. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed my chat with Oliver Aldridge.
Thanks, Chris.